Thank you. Thank you very much for tuning in. You know, today I wanted to talk about the importance of education. Many people have formal education and then they stop educating themselves. They think that they've kind of come across this finish line and there's no more need to educate. And you know, today, with the world advancing so rapidly, with technology advancing so rapidly, our education has to keep up with this and has to constantly change, or we could actually be left behind in our businesses. We're going to talk to very successful entrepreneurs today that are at the cutting edge of this education. They're going to show us how to increase our bottom lines in our business. They're going to show us how to maximize our profits. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Real estate today offers incredible opportunities, low prices, and extremely low interest rates. Hi, I'm Amy Norris from Ames Sells the Beach. Right now, there are opportunities in all areas. Our team can help you put your money to work finding your dream or investment property. And if you're looking to sell, no one can give you better exposure to buyers and make your property stand out. Experience matters when looking for opportunity. I'm Amy Norris. See why we're #1 at amysellsthebeach.com.
When visiting Gulf Shores, Alabama, make sure to visit the Gulf Coast Zoo, home of the little zoo that could from Animal Planet. Get up close in our petting zoo. Enjoy our unique animal encounters. More than 300 monkeys, bears, reptiles, big cats, parrots, and more call Gulf Coast home. Come on, go wild at the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back with us. I'm sitting here also with entrepreneur Steve Ames. Steve Ames, I met recently, several months back, and you know, Steve is a very successful entrepreneur and author, and he's really a real estate mogul. What I thought was interesting about his story is I hope I can say this, Steve, but you literally scavenged your way to wealth. You came from very humble beginnings, right?
Yes.
And how many kids were in the family?
Well, there are 8 of us all together. My dad was married before and had a son and a daughter, and so I was next to the youngest out of 6 of his second family.
Okay, so total of 11.
Well, 8, and then my parents would be 10.
Yeah, and then when we say humble beginnings, we're not talking about you know, we could only get limited toys for Christmas or something. We're talking about humble beginnings. In fact, I found a picture here. If you would tell us a little bit about this picture. Is this you here?
No, that's my brother. This is in 1954, by the way, and I was born in 1950, so this is me, and then that's my brother, and then 3 sisters and my mother.
Well, you'd think they'd be able to afford a haircut. You got some long hair there. I thought, but we're talking really humble beginnings. I noticed no shoes.
No shoes. We the whole summer long, none of us wore shoes.
Wow. And I've had a chance to meet your sister a little bit, Joanne.
Yeah.
Amazing gal, and she also told me some of the stories. So you literally, you know, we talk a lot of times about business and cash infusion. A lot of people are looking for a certain amount of capital. I've talked to a lot of big corporations, and they say, you know, all I need is $100 million. I don't need a lot of capital. I just need 25 mil. And I'm like, what? But, you know, honestly, there's a lot of speculation right now in the media as far as is the United States a country where somebody can still have a great idea and on very limited means, or maybe let's say no financial capital, let's say sweat equity, can we still take a great idea and create an opportunity in this country without a lot of capital? And, you know, based on your story and many others, I would have to say that the answer is yes. You actually started out, I mean, getting like used nails and 2x4s and old carpet, and said, you know, I'm gonna be this real estate guy, you know, this investor. And now you have an empire.
I have between 600 and 700 units, and I tell people I started out buying shacks on a shoestring. just for maybe 5% down on maybe a private contract with the owner, and just little by little scavenged the materials from yard sales and remodeled, and just on pennies, built equity, and then I'd transfer that equity. I'd go to the bank. I'd ask for an appraisal a year later, or 6 months later, or a year and a half later, and pull 20,000 or 25,000 or 15,000, sometimes only 5 or 10,000 out of that house, and retain that house, but transfer the equity to another purchase. And then 2 or 3 years later, I'd find myself with 3 or 4 or 5 properties, and then I was able to buy like a 30-unit or a 50-unit apartment complex just in a relatively short period of time by transferring equity, or what we call cross-collateralizing.
Yeah, and you know what I appreciate about your story, Steve, is there's a lot of people out there, and they'll go out, they'll get a mortgage on a thing, and then they'll rent the property, or they'll whatever. And they, yes, there's a lot of income coming in, but the amount going out and the amount left over versus risk, it's not the greatest situation, even though technically on paper they make a lot of money. And with you kind of have a different approach to these things. I know you're very goal-oriented. We were talking earlier about, and I believe you too, every goal he's ever said, he says, you know, here's what I'm going to do. And then he'll just keep working at it. He might be late, but he never, ever stops until what he said he's going to do, he accomplishes. And I know one of those goals was to actually have your properties debt-free.
Right.
Is that right?
I started buying, and I bought about 4 properties. I started buying when I was 26, and by the time I was about 29, I had 4 properties bought. And I waited about 10 more years. My kids were small, and we raised them up, and I didn't really, I knew what I wanted to do, but my wife at the time was saying, well, you know, I think you should keep on doing what you're doing and not get involved in real estate. And my heart was telling me that I really needed to be in real estate. So roughly 10 years later, I started buying again. And it took me about 20 years to put the whole fortune together.
Yeah.
But,
and, you know, starting out, again, you started with sweat equity, we could say.
yes, I did.
And you've got this empire between 600 and 700 units now.
Yeah.
And you have no debt. I know you do have one complex you just took.
Well, I started to say a minute ago, after a few years, I took about 10 years off. And then within 3 or 4 years, I found myself with 60 or 70 units. And then I decided that my next goal would be to have 100 units. And then by the time I was in my late 40s or very early 50s, I decided the bank was offering a special, like 5.2% or something. And I went in, I had about 12 or 14 properties that weren't completely paid off. And at that time, I'd already decided to have 100 properties. And then when the bank gave me the 5-year the umbrella loan to put all those 12 or 14 properties together, I figured 5 years later, I'd be debt-free and have 100% of those paid off. And I had just about 100 units. I had 96 or 97, maybe 98 units. And so when I reached that, then I started seeing the numbers. So then I went to Des Moines, Iowa, which is about an hour's drive away from Marshalltown, my hometown, my adulthood hometown. But anyway, then I bought 108 plex. And then all in these last 5 years, I've bought, hundreds and hundreds of units. And all with sweat equity from the beginning, and all from scavenged labor, scavenged purchases, scavenged materials.
Now, you know, I had the privilege to read your book. And I tell you, I got to tell you, when I was reading it, I was actually saying, could this be true? Because where you came from and where you are now, it's an unbelievable story. And again, so many times people, once they have capital, it's not too difficult to be able to strategically use money to make more money. But coming from nothing and being raised in a family where you didn't learn all the financial principles and you had to go, you know, basically self-educate, it's such an amazing story. Now, the book is actually Scavenge Your Way to Wealth. Tell us a little bit about the book.
The book just starts off, my dad couldn't work anymore in 1954. He worked for a stone, it was called Roy E. Beard Cut Stone Company in Lansing, Michigan. His lungs filled up with stone dust. At that time, nobody wore a mask. Excuse me. So he had to quit working. He was no longer dependable. He would take a couple of steps. He would collapse. It couldn't get his breath. And so we just started a dump picking circuit. We went to all the city dumps and the county dumps and fished out all the metals, copper, lead, brass, zinc, aluminum, steel, and took them to the salvage yard and got basic, you know, we sold for whatever money we could to pay our basic bills, electricity, and buy food items and that.
Well, you know, reading the book, Steve, I don't even know. I mean, I know a lot of people call you like a real estate mogul or this very successful real estate guy, but you know, a lot of the principles that you use are really financial principles. I'm not sure after reading the book I would really even call you a real estate guy, but almost a financial expert, because the techniques that you're using are a lot of techniques that really savvy, and I mean very educated, savvy financial people use. And now you built your wealth by transferring a lot of times equity from one property to another.
Over leveraging everything that I could, you know, getting the maximum out of the value that I had to buy the biggest property from cross collateralizing or transferring the equity from something small to something as big as I could buy, and then remodel, generate more rents, and then keep on buying and buying and buying.
Well, you know, and when you think about the premise of literally scavenge your way to wealth, you might think of like, would I want to live in a home like that? Would I want to go in a home where everything was, and you kind of envision like this thing that's like, okay, it's a low rent type deal. That's not the case at all. Last time we were together, I saw pictures of a lot of your properties. Inside and out, and I'll tell you one thing: the strategies that you use to do this, I think equally as impressive is your standard of quality. Because I would be honored to live in a lot of the places that you're putting out. I mean, they look like Homes Magazine type places. So we're not talking a dilapidated thing that's a low rent.
Let me just say this: after I got going, after the first few purchases, I found out how to scavenge brand new materials. There's all kinds of like upper and lower cabinets that are scraped, or they're scuffed, or they're kicked, or they're gouged, they're scratched, and you can get those for like 50 cents on the dollar. And all you have to do is, you know, paint them, or you can sand out the smudges, sand out the scratches, and install them. Nobody knows the difference. Same way with roofing. One time I bought enough asphalt shingles to do 3 or 4 roofs, and when they came out of the factory, they looked really neat, but like on one end or the other, it was a little bit too light or a little bit too dark. And so they just sold me a ton of them at a very low price. We picked all through them, and we threw out those that were very obviously, you know, too dark or too light on one end, and just completely threw those away, and then just fished through everything else. And we had 3/4 or more of everything I bought was brand new, good materials, and I got them for pennies on the dollar. I've done that with windows. I've done that with doors.
Everything.
I've done that
basically
with carpeting. I've done it with cabinets. I've done it with everything.
Wow.
And not just picking in the dump, but scavenging, like I said, all brand new stuff.
Yeah, so it's not dilapidated. They were talking new stuff here, and you know, we really appreciate these success principles, and again, we're talking about being able to build an empire from nothing. And we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Steve Ames. We're going to learn more financial tips of how to make something from nothing. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Real estate today offers incredible opportunities, low prices, and extremely low interest rates. Hi, I'm Amy Norris from Ames Sells the Beach. Right now, there are opportunities in all areas. Our team can help you put your money to work finding your dream or investment property. And if you're looking to sell, no one can give you better exposure to buyers and make your property stand out. Experience matters when looking for opportunity. I'm Amy Norris. See why we're #1 at amysellsthebeach.com.
When visiting Gulf Shores, Alabama, make sure to visit the Gulf Coast Zoo, home of the little zoo that could from Animal Planet. Get up close in our petting zoo. Enjoy our unique animal encounters. More than 300 monkeys, bears, reptiles, big cats, parrots, and more call a Gulf Coast home. Come on, go wild at the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo.
Thank you. We're sitting here with entrepreneur Steve Ames. And Steve, I got to tell you, such an interesting guy. As I mentioned, we were talking a little bit about your book, Scavenging Your Way to Wealth. And it's such an amazing, it's such a great American story because, I mean, we're talking about the premise of coming from nothing. And, you know, we mentioned your father would take you to these dump sites, literally. And now you have this empire, and you're the envy of many entrepreneurs because there's so many entrepreneurs out there where they just get trapped in their business that they can't take a vacation. They're prisoners of their business. They go on vacation, they come back, they're putting out fires. But I know you don't have all of your properties in one location. You have them in numerous different states, and you have it set up now pretty much on autopilot where you can leave the country. I know you're going to Dubai, which I'm trying to work out going with you, and all these things. And you can go anywhere, and you're completely mobile. You've not only set it up to be on autopilot, but you have this income coming in without being there.
Yeah, I saw that coming a long time ago. I don't know who it was I talked to, but they left quite an impression with me. They said, don't find yourself working in a job where you constantly have to get out of bed and go to that job every day, or else you won't be able to feed yourself, you won't be able to pay your bills. You need something that'll go on autopilot. And so I thought more and more about having a 20-plex or a 50-plex or a 100-plex apartment unit, having a full-time on-site manager, having a full-time on-site maintenance person, and I could check in with these people by phone or by internet and never really have to be there. But that was huge to conquer in my mind because I was born so genetically hands-on. I was so programmed to be so hands-on that I was in my early to mid-50s before I really got it, that I could back away from a big
and trust somebody else.
Yes,
to
that's
have that
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, you know, I think I agree with you. There's so many people that are programmed they have to be involved, and it's admirable because they want to be in the trenches. They want to, but you know what? You can't capture big volume that way, and then you're tied like a prisoner. You have to be able to let go. You have to be able to trust others that they're going to be able to get the job done right. And of course, in this economy now, if they're not doing the job right, there's a million other people that are qualified that will do the job right for the steady income. So it's amazing what you accomplished. Now, the book, as I mentioned, I had a chance to actually go through it and read it. And there's amazing, not only amazing stories, but there's a lot of success principles that if people had nothing and they said, you know what, hard work and sweat, there's a lot of principles people could take and actually create something very substantial. What kind of impact do you feel like this book would have on others? I know what I think it will have.
Well, for one thing, the economy is not so good right now. People can do exactly what we've been talking about here, just exactly the same as I've done. I mean, even though I started 35 years ago, you don't have to go into a bank and say, well, I need 20,000, 40,000 to get into this business or that. You can literally start with pennies, and that's one of my main messages. You really don't have to have tons of savings. You don't.
So if there's somebody in our viewing audience right now that's saying, you know what, I know that more millionaires have been created through real estate than anything else. It's a proven fact. I know that I could do this, but I don't have any capital. I don't know how to start. Do you feel like realistically, if somebody's out there and they don't have any money, they might be able to put together $500 or $1,000. They can't come up with a loan. They don't have the credit to swing it. Through tips in your book and through hard work, can they accomplish in this day and age what you accomplished?
Yes, you can always find somebody. Let's say you hunt the community, hunt through the community and find a shack. Maybe you find 10 shacks. Well, maybe 9 owners of those 10 owners, they want at least $5,000 or $10,000 down. And then after that, they want to set you up on payments. If you don't have that kind of cash, they'll say, sorry, pal, you get on down the road because we don't want to deal with it. But there's probably one person out of 10 that will say, I'll work something out. Give me $1,000. If you get a tenant in there in the next month or so, we'll delay your payments here for a couple of months. I know that'll generate $600 a month. You give me $300 a month for the next 2 years, and let's have it appraised at that time, and then we'll go from there. There's always somebody ready to do a deal with you. There's always somebody ready to do a deal. It doesn't matter. They'll just sort of take a liking to you. They'll see something in your personality. They'll believe you. It might come at a time for them they just want to get it behind them.
Absolutely.
And so there you are.
Well, in a corporate application, I know so many business owners are so frustrated with their business, and the business might have a lot of assets, but it's technically losing money on payroll, and they get so frustrated. they would say, you know, I just want to put this behind me. I want to walk away from this thing. Sign over liability, take over the company. I'll walk. Give me $1,000 or whatever. I'm on out. And, you know, as you mentioned, there's a lot of people out there, especially now, that are willing to do things and settle for different terms they might not have done 5 or 10 years ago. Right. And so I agree with you. I think that right now there's a great opportunity because of where the economy is, that people are more workable to be able to give people the advantage of being able to build something like you have. Literally from nothing. Now, I believe this book is going to really be embraced, and it's going to impact millions and millions of lives. Is there a plan for follow-up books?
Yes.
What can I get, Steve? I already read that book. I mean, there's something else you got.
I've written a few pages of the second book, and it's also going to be, we're creating a Scavenger Way to Wealth series. And so the first one is Scavenger Way to Wealth, and then a Rags to Riches memoir. The second one is Scavenger Way to Wealth, Shacks on a Shoestring as a subtitle. And the third one will be Scavenger Way to Wealth, and then it'll go on down from there. I figure I can get at least a half a dozen books out of this series.
Yeah. And I know you're already a very successful guy. I know that I know you pretty well, Steve. I know you don't do anything for money. I know you have this drive in you to genuinely help people and really provide affordable housing to people. And I know with the book series, you wouldn't put those books out there unless you could provide real value that you believe would really help some folks.
Absolutely, because as you could see, everything that I wrote about, it's 100% the truth. I wasn't drawing on anybody else's ideas. Everything is what I documented. I had those personal experiences. And I plan to do the same. The second book that I've already started, that's called Shacks on a Shoestring. I bought a shack the other day for $10,000 with $1,000 down.
So there you go, $1,000. You're
and I'm going to document every stage of the remodeling or the rehabbing, and all with scavenged labor, scavenged materials, and then I scavenge the purchase also. You go through bankruptcy attorneys, or you go through defaulted assets through banks. There's always a banker, somebody in a bank that handles only the defaulted assets. If you've got an account there, if you've got a pretty good credit rating, if you've got maybe a little bit of a connection, you might even ask for, I never asked for a co-signer. I did everything on my own, but some people, maybe they have a father, mother, aunt, uncle that might co-sign.
There's always a way.
Always a way.
Right? There's always a way. Yeah. And, you know, we appreciate you so much, Stephen. You know, on our show, we try to make one very practical business point every single week, every episode. We try to give away one success principle. But we've been talking about the importance of education. And you know what, a big part of being a successful entrepreneur is risk. You know, a lot of times people are out there and they're looking for that perfect scenario where the stars line up perfectly and you got that zero risk situation where you got this guaranteed win. And you know, that never happens. And if there's no risk, generally there's not much to gain. You don't stand to win very big either if you want that no risk scenario. So as an investor myself, I kind of look at it like Vegas odds. I try to find like an 80-20 rule. You know, if I see a deal and I'm 80% sure it's likely it's going to succeed, but I see 20% risk, I'm like you. I'm all in quickly or I'm out. I say, you know what, I'm in. It's 80% likeliness. And the way I look at it, that is sometimes I make bad decisions. Sometimes we slip on banana pills. We make bad investments. But overall, I don't begrudge those 20% times because, you know, Las Vegas, even when the house loses, the house always wins. And if I didn't have that philosophy of approaching business that way, I wouldn't have those 20% losses, but I wouldn't have the 80% wins either. And I think you have to be comfortable with pulling the trigger, looking at risk, assessing risk properly. Yeah. And one way you've been able to actually minimize risk is by finding materials, lowering your fixed cost. And minimizing that margin.
Another thing too, in my case, I didn't have anything, so you know, if you don't have anything, you risk everything because you have nothing to lose.
Exactly, that's a great point.
If you don't have anything to
lose,
lose,
fall that far
you reach for the stars, and that's what I did.
Absolutely, that's a great point. There's a saying that says if you shoot for the stars, you might hit an eagle. And when you don't have anything to risk, you got to jump all in. So if you're out there, if you're thinking about, you know, I'd love to get involved, I'd like to be an entrepreneur, I'd like to do something, but you know what, I don't have any money. Don't use capital or the lack of capital as an excuse. Get involved. Pick up Steve's book, Scavenge Your Way to Wealth. Will be due out
by the end of July.
End of July. We'll keep you informed with that. And I'll tell you what, Steve, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Come back, would you?
I sure will.
You know, guys, that's our show tonight. Thank you very much. And don't forget to get involved in your local community and be forgiving of others. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Real estate today offers incredible opportunities, low prices, and extremely low interest rates. Hi, I'm Amy Norris from Ames Sells the Beach. Right now, there are opportunities in all areas. Our team can help you put your money to work finding your dream or investment property. And if you're looking to sell, no one can give you better exposure to buyers and make your property stand out. Experience matters when looking for opportunity. I'm Amy Norris. See why we're #1 at amysellsthebeach.com.
When visiting Gulf Shores, Alabama, make sure to visit the Gulf Coast Zoo, home of the little zoo that could from Animal Planet. Get up close in our petting zoo. Enjoy our unique animal encounters. More than 300 monkeys, bears, reptiles, big cats, parrots, and more call Gulf Coast home. Come on, go wild at the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo.